Hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking with the Empowera podcast. Your own patronage so far is making us go billions of light years ahead of where we thought we could ever go. So thank you for that. We are about to begin Psi Week. What is Psi Week? Well, it's a week to at least introduce the ability to have members of the community in any way, shape, or form come and share their journeys when it's come to alternative and complementative therapies, whether in the United States, in Europe, in Africa, in New Zealand, in Australia, in Japan, anywhere, to be able to come and talk about that. So we're about to begin. Thank you so much. Go ahead. All right, everybody, please mute your phones. Just kidding. Thank you. Bye. Hello, everyone. This is the Empowera podcast, a podcast run by healthcare professionals for healthcare professionals with an overall goal of raising transparency and awareness and continuing with our goal to have legislation passed in the state of Colorado and throughout the whole United States, mandating employers to provide employee wellness programs beyond their current benefits. That can include and is not limited to 1, a minimum of 8 wellness days for all healthcare professionals per quarter. Second, a minimum deposit into an HSA account per quarter that is tax exempt. And third, the establishment of an anti-retaliation department that is run by a third party. At Empowera, we believe in the power of community, diversity, and inclusivity, and to create positive change and improve society. Our podcast aims to amplify those voices that often go unheard, featuring interviews with individuals and organizations through their overall personal growth when it comes to making a difference in their communities and beyond, through thought-provoking conversations on topics that may not be and may be and may have be on the lower end of the knob, and those trying to inspire others to continue to raise and promote when it comes to transparency towards a more equitable and sustainable healthcare realm and overall society throughout the world. Join us as we continue on these new perspectives and challenge assumptions and work towards creating a brighter future. We have another guest returning here. This is John Smith. Hello, John Smith. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me. I guess it's been, 3 or 4 months, but I'm glad to be back on. I've been working just doing the healthcare thing here in the Denver area, and it's quite an experience. I've been working through an agency for the last few months, and I do work full time as well at a SNF. That has changed since my last interview on here, but I'm doing pretty well. I think that there's a lot of room for improvement in what's going on right now.
So for those who haven't heard you before, you're coming out of the Denver area, correct?
Yes.
Cool. All right.
Yep.
Cool. Before we get into the question, we're getting there, and I'm glad we are. This is the part where we give a big thank you out to any parts of the community. It could be any industries that are supporting people in their overall wellness and personal growth in any way, shape, or form. Is there any kind of a shout out you'd like to give today, John?
Yeah, I'd like to, give a shout out to my medical marijuana doctor, Dr. Peter Pryor. I've had him now for about 4 to 5 years, and he keeps me informed on cannabis, and he's a good doctor. So I guess I'd like to give him a shout out.
Yeah. Hey, that's great. That's in any way, shape, or form, and that helps and that contributes to your overall wellness and personal growth in society. Hey, that's what we're here for. Be able to talk about these and have these conversations. So, first question, if we can, just didn't know if you wanted to go ahead and revisit and talk about the integrity of healthcare for you.
I guess the integrity of healthcare for me, could you specifically, how do I do, what's my view on
just, I guess, the way that it is now? We're going to get to what is happening, but with this one, and this is a newer part into the podcast for those who are listening, I'm trying to integrate this more for a communal ability to have input beyond just healthcare professionals. So with this, I guess for me, from your viewpoint, what do you see as at this current time is the integrity of healthcare? That can be in any of the avenues. It can be in staffing, it can be bedside manner, it can be the overall patient experience. There are no limits.
I start with staffing. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, I know I may have mentioned this previously, but I mean, call-offs, I would actually, if I'm going to be honest here the whole time, I'm going to include myself in the call-off situation, but call-offs have become just the absolute normal now. Every week, nurses call off. That's why agency gets last second shifts, because a lot of times facilities just have last, not necessarily last second, but they have a call off 1 hour, 2 hours before a shift. And I'm going to include myself in the group, although I usually give about a 4-hour notice, but I want to include myself in the people that call off, because a lot of people are just overworked, and the staffing situation is pretty dismal. And a lot of times, I've worked as an agency nurse and as a full-time nurse at facilities that it's very difficult to get agency to actually do their work, the nurse or the CNA. A lot of times people come in with the mentality of, I'm here for 8 hours, I'm here for 12 hours, I'm here for 16 hours, I'm never going to be back, so I'm just going to do what I need to do to get the bare minimum covered. And, the issue with that attitude is that it sets the next shift and the next nurse up for less than ideal conditions to just literally hand out only pills and not really, even do the treatments in a lot of cases. So it's not good. The situation and the integrity in staffing isn't good. I don't think it's because management's not trying. I don't think that's the reason at all. I think people in management are as frustrated as people that work the floor with trying to find people that can be there reliably, regularly. The problem is that people do have to work a lot now in this area to afford the increase in the cost of living. And a lot of people in healthcare, what they'll do is, myself included in this, that's partly how I know about it, but I talk to people I work with as well, as people work and work and work for a period of time. They really bite off more than they can chew because of the cost of living. And then what happens is they, for a week or two, they sort of realize they need to sort of scale back, and then they do call in for a shift or two, and that's where the agency will usually come cover. And I think, at least at my full-time job, that the pay now is pretty competitive with agencies. Agencies I actually make more at my full-time job than my agency. I thought I'd say that, but I think that a lot of facilities, a lot of SNFs, a lot of rehabilitation places sort of are seeing that if you want to compete with agencies, you're going to have to pay your regular people, at least something close to what these other people are coming in and making, just to work for a shift. And I think that's good. I think that's a move in the right direction. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, I guess, answer the question of, well, does the person get a legitimate annual raise? But at least you're starting somebody off right by giving them, a wage that's, adjusted to the cost of living in a region. And it's really, I've lived in this area since 2012, and it's a whole different ball game financially now than it was, when I came here. So the integrity staffing isn't good. I guess the integrity with bedside manner. I mean, I work nights, so I don't see a lot of. I guess I was working days last time I was on here, but I've been doing nights for the past 2 months, and I don't interact with a whole lot of different staff members, so I can't speak to the integrity of bedside manner at the moment. But I do know it's from a few interactions I've had with the people that I do work with at the bedside, it's they're patient and doing the best they can as well. But I guess that's what I have to say on integrity right now.
No, that's good. Thank you. That's a great share. I guess even to throw in there, if I can, I mean, being able to have those conversations, whether it be staff to management and management to above, and be able to have that, I guess, return back to know that you feel heard in whatever way that it is. Because I think what we're up against is, and I'm seeing it in a number of different areas, and I'll declare it, since we had a mention of medical marijuana, I will declare now, this is Psy Week, everybody. Psy Week is where we can talk about mental health and wellness in regards to that beyond the pharmaceutical industry, and that with it as well. There's some that are in conjunction with it. Because I think the potential avenues that we could get, not only as a society, but I think potentially those areas of where people are feeling this way when it comes to that, not to say that we need to be dumbed down, I guess, by these substances in any way, shape, or form. I guess that's perspective on how people want to look at that. But to see that these could potentially be affordable avenues. I mean, there's current research showing that certain substances that you can grow I'm not here to promote in any way, shape, or form or prescribe, but are becoming, if not more, the same, if not cheaper, when it comes to the pharmaceutical route for the treatment of depression, PTSD, anxiety, and just the overall other traumas in any way, shape, or form. And I guess in a society, I mean, that may be something, I guess this is, if I can share, I just think this is something we're seeing in society. And this might be something we're up against right now, is someone who has this unmanaged whatever, and it's come down to their overall relationship with money. And that has led to a compounding effect to each and every patient's experience. And it's in multiple health systems across the whole world. Honestly, if I'm not going to be able, and this is my thought, but like if you can't be able to talk with management, cool. Let's have some verification that they're actually in, they're looking at for their own mental health and wellness. Because those are our leaders. Those are the people we're looking to set the example. I mean, the president of the United States is there to represent the public, what the American man is. And the first lady, and regardless of how it may be in the future, and historically, it was to show how the woman in the United States appeared. And it's a perspective to look at. If that's what we're doing politically, then there's the actual politics of, the workplace too. And this is what I feel we come up against as just healthcare professionals in general and as a society. I mean, some people, they want violence because they have unresolved stuff, and it could be a world leader out there or world leaders that are out there, and they have the ultimate protection. And don't get me wrong, I've never been a politician or a president or any of that, or an emperor by any means, but it's just interesting to see that. What do you get from that?
I do. I think that, there's, nature does provide a lot of answers. I don't think when it comes to any kind of medicine, anything is a magic bullet for anyone. And I don't think one size fits all for anybody. And that would go, especially with anything natural. There are people that they're always going to prefer a more regimented sort of 90-degree angle regimen for taking medicine versus sort of going by how they feel. And and for those people that they're, there's certainly to an advantage right now, because mainstream medical practitioners don't even want to, really talk about alternative treatments at the time. I know my last hospital physician I saw was a specialist here in Denver at St. Luke's Presbyterian. She, basically I went to her for about a year before I was able to discover how to get off all my medications. And once I did that using cannabis, she basically more or less, after a year of going there for about an hour a visit every 2 weeks for a year, she, prescribed various pharmaceuticals that failed and all this other stuff. But I mean, she basically told me, in a kind of a backwards way that, she doesn't really want to hear about cannabis because, it's not been studied. I didn't say this at the time, but my thought is we haven't studied many things. I mean, does anyone really know what happens to a person who drinks Coca-Cola every day for, 40 or 50 years? I mean, there are no studies on it, but I can tell you there's a good chance you'll end up with, heart disease or diabetes. But I mean, what I'm getting at is that to say I'm not going to entertain cannabis because it hasn't been studied by, institutions that more or less look at cannabis as, basically a competition to what's already established. Mm-hmm. So, the FDA, the National Institute of Drug Abuse, the DEA, these entities, they don't have there is no incentive for them to look into what this stuff is as far as medical marijuana or psychedelics go. There's no incentive for them to look into it, because if they look into it, it takes, it basically eats into their budgets. The National Institute on Drug Abuse, I mean, they're some of the worst offenders as well. I mean, they've known for years about psychedelics and marijuana. How far back is hard to say, but their website is packed with misinformation. The NIDA is, so is the DEA, and so is the FDA. So we've got a lot of people who trust these, I'm not saying anyone shouldn't trust them, but we have a lot of people who trust these, institutions that basically everyone at and in, from the janitor to, the head man knows, I'll use cannabis mainly as the example, but, it's very well known that it's nothing else. It's completely non-toxic. So whether or not, you believe in its medical application and all this, it's completely non-toxic. So the fact that we have all these, institutions dictating medicine, they don't want to look at something that's harmless. I mean, to me, it just paints the wrong picture. I will say, to be honest with you as well, I don't believe any of these NIDA, FDA, DEA, I don't believe any of them actually, completely understand the cannabis situation themselves. I think a lot of people, still sort of almost view it as something that's, it's good for numbing pain. But and while that there is truth in that, it's so much more than a painkiller. It's really not just oxycodone. It really isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it would be very difficult, I think, until there's federal changes in the laws. I think it will be very difficult for practitioners at any level of medicine to really do anything with cannabis or other, psychedelic substances, because, these are just things that were never given their scientific day in court to begin with. LSD was around for about 13 years in the United States in laboratories before it was made in 1966, first in California and about a few months later the rest of the country. But what I'm getting at is that, these things were never given their scientific day in court. A lot of people in society did use them for a short period. It was a time of a lot of the social change, not that different from right now, to be honest with you. I mean, it was sort of a different time of growth. It was sort of a post-war growth. It was a time of growth where people who were born after World War II were all coming of age. But I mean, it would be very difficult in today's medical climate to get, until something changes federally. And it's too bad that that's how it is. But most of these medical, places, hospitals, nursing homes, or rehab facility, drug abuse places, I mean, they all get federal money. So their main concerns are following federal laws, and federal laws dictate that marijuana is, heroin. And Biden recently, his administration, maybe I shouldn't say him, but the Biden administration recently said that veterans do not have a right to cannabis, despite that they've gone and put their life on the line, their mental health on the line. They're not allowed, their doctors are not allowed to even discuss the option of marijuana with them. So, I mean, to me, we're living in just a backwards world. I mean, you can go take a bullet for your country. You can go, sign away everything that's important in the world for keep a country free, but you can't, you're not allowed to even have a discussion. It's not even on the table for discussion. Yeah. Doctor, that to me, when you're not allowed to ask questions, that's usually a bad sign, because there's usually something being hidden when you can't ask a question. And really, I don't know who said it, but it's been said that if you really want to know who your masters are, or, who really controls you, find out who you're not allowed to question. And that's pretty much who controls you. And so, the doctors at the VA, I mean, it's too bad that there's not more people sort of speaking out against this. I mean, I haven't had a lot of time to read into it. I guess I've read a few Marijuana Moment articles on it, but it's too bad that there's no one who's sort of willing to stand up and say, look, I mean, I'm a professional medical person, this needs to be looked at. I'm not making any claims. I'm not making any.
This is all you're mainly your own meandering experience and your courage through your overall journey. And I'm shouting out because I attended the pre-book signing called Courage in Cannabis, but your overall courage in that journey with it, right? And your overall life, and then not only from your own personal experience, what you're sharing, which you don't have to do, but you are, and their overall impact it's had on you and your overall well-being, and being able to still be here and want to talk about it. I mean, that's something in and of itself. I know you spoke also to FDA. I know recently, I was at the Psychedelic Science Conference back in June. Paul Stamets, he recently announced that he did receive a $60 million Series A to gain FDA approval. for the Stamets stack and for psilocybin analogs as well. So if we're talking about all plants, but it's amazing too that if I can share when it comes to the overall, I think it's our relationship with plants as humans, and we're okay with the opium plant. We're totally okay with that. We have multiple analogs of that. And we're not mentioning too, one thing that we are up against as a society, and just to keep it fresh in there, is prior to COVID, we still had the opioid epidemic that was occurring too. So availability to resources as potentials, and it literally could take, by research, do your own research. Like, and I say that on Twitter Spaces as well, but certain plants only take so long to grow, and you're allowed to see that, and you're allowed to know that. It's out there. Even Colorado, and thankfully you being a resident there as well, and me as well, as being the Natural Medicine Health Act that Colorado has put into place for people, because they've literally, as an actual state, I think it's the beginning, if I can pull it up. Yes, Colorado's current approach to mental health has failed to fulfill its promise. Coloradans deserve more tools to address mental health issues, including approaches such as natural medicines that are grounded in treatment, recovery, health, and wellness, rather than criminalization, stigma, suffering, and punishment. Coloradans are experiencing problematic mental health issues, including but not limited to suicidality, addiction, depression, and anxiety. And I'm so glad, and thank you all for your service, if you're a service person listening to this, for mentioning veterans. That is definitely an area, even throughout research. I was in a space about a month ago, if I can share too, and it was with a veteran, and she's been on here, named Athena. And she had even said, and through research, a lot of the research we have that's applied to us throughout the healthcare realm has come from research on veterans and vice versa. So if we're honestly able to have this as just the general public, because that's what they do, I feel, when they go into the military, they become a pack. They become a group, a unit. So, and here we're not. We're all individualized. Somebody has a poster of whoever in their room, and another person has no poster, or they have another poster. Like, that's it, individuality. And being able to have that, not only transition that they have as well, going back into society, and I'll declare this as a healthcare professional, even as a burnout one, that this could be something you could look into. I've been thanked for my service by veterans. I'm not looking for that. That's just what happened and came out of COVID. So if we're going to apply this to them, let's turn up. If they really need people for research, let's see what medical professionals will be even interested as well. Not here to tell people what to do, whatever medical decisions they would make, but if that's the way that literal research has been when it comes to medicine, is through the military experience and through civilian experience, and then we intermingle them, why would we stop with anything else?
I didn't know that about the military, so I kind of learned from them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, open it up, because and to feel the things that potentially they've felt before if they want to share, because it's a similar relationship, I feel like, post-COVID with healthcare professionals, all of them. Registration, environmental, everybody. It was a change. It was something to look back on. It wasn't a war. It wasn't a battle. Well, I think it was a battle on the front lines. If you wanted to see it, it wasn't a battle fought with guns and swords and knives and whatever other weapons we as humans have creatively made. We've used one of the greatest tools of all that made things a lot faster, potentially, and that was technology in any way, shape, or form. And to see what was potentially generated out when we as humanity were at a weak point, to be able to turn up that knob and bring that back into a baseline and then go from there. Let's see what we can discover and create from there. Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're right. COVID really did. There were problems before COVID, but COVID basically really made the problems stick out like a sore thumb more than before. And it's here in Denver. I think I said it the last time I was on here, but a nurse aide, that job is as important as any. And if you're going to have someone doing that job 40 hours a week, they have to be making enough to afford at least a 2-bedroom apartment in the Denver area, I would
Absolutely.
say. Otherwise, you really can't expect somebody to come work a job and still not be able to make the rent. It just isn't. It's not. It's just not realistic. It just isn't. And you also spoke about Paul Stamets getting, I guess, some kind of. Did you say you got a grant?
$60 million. It's on his website. It's a $60 million Series A to gain FDA approval.
I I'm not.
I believe, and don't quote me, I believe when I was at the Psychedelic Science Conference, he did say that he got the approval. I believe he did. So, but I think it's so early in this overall amount. And for those who don't know, he is a world-renowned mycologist born in, I looked it up, Salem, Ohio. Entrepreneur and author. Definitely interested. He has his own venture. It's called Mycomedia Life Sciences. I'm not sponsored by him in any way, shape, or form, but he's been on various platforms. He's been on Joe Rogan. He's been in the serialization of Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind. And then also been influenced on Netflix and his 6 books I think he has. He's into anti-viral mushroom compounds, medicinal mushrooms, and culinary as well. I mean, he's everything mushrooms.
Good night.
Yeah.
He doesn't really. I mean, that goes to show you this. Fungus has got really the uses for fungus are just beyond what we could really talk about in one episode.
Oh, absolutely. That's like a whole series, a couple seasons. I mean, I think, what is it? Only a small percentage of fungi produce mushrooms. And I think they say on any leaf or stem, I was reading in The Entanglement of Life by Merlin Sheldrake. And it was talking about how on a single leaf or stem, there can be between tens and hundreds of different fungi. Just only a small percentage of them produce the mushrooms.
Yeah, fungi it's really, from an evolutionary standpoint, it's extremely important. I guess I've read different texts. I've Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna.
Mm-hmm.
I that, and in that book he says that pretty much fungi was one of the first organized living organisms to sort of make its way, here on Earth, and it's over 1 billion years old. So, I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that fungus predates pretty much every living thing in existence.
Yep. It even helped the plants come out of the water. The algae, I was reading that in the book too. It's what helped them come out of the water. It gave it their root system.
Wow.
Yeah. And then now they both work symbiotically. Like the one tree needs enough nutrients and it can be the whole, it's called the wood wide web underneath your feet when we walk. The wood wide web. Yes. And they can communicate back and forth. It's almost like us with the internet, Yeah.
I definitely have an interest in fungus. I know a lot of people have mentioned microdosing. That's something I never got into myself. I've really enjoyed more of using it more for like a kick, I guess, at this point in the game. I don't think there's anything better for burnout, at least in my experience. And it isn't, if you take a substantial dose, you probably won't do it again next weekend. It's its own animal. It's not, that's worth mentioning too with even psychedelics that, things like LSD, I mean, it's not a tryptamine. So chemically, something like LSD is very similar to psilocybin, but experientially, I think people who've taken enough of both can tell you that they're very different animals. And
I've heard that from various friends before too, and they're still here, they're still around, they're still able to tell me who it is they are and whatnot,
right?
And they're working a job, paying their bills. So, and like you mentioned too, and it was just in the topic of, I think you mentioned both of them. There's the micro dose and there's the macro dose for those who have gone down that realm. Again, not telling anybody to do it in any way, shape, or form, just mentioning what's out there on the internet that's being used, and there is research being done right now. It just really kicked off back in April, believe it or not, in the United States. So if you start looking now in the news, you'll be starting to see that. But microdosing definitely for all the stuff we had mentioned previously too, PTSD, anxiety, and it's depending on the plan that you do, it's not a weekly thing. It has its own regimen, but you see the difference in the overall. I mean, I guess some of the other research I'm seeing too, and like you said, we could have a whole probably series on this too, is the overall influence with neuroplasticity and neurogenesis. That was one thing that Stamets really talked about as well, was their abilities to be able to have an influence on the human brain when it comes to the two of those, even at the microdosing level. So, yeah, and we're almost about to hit 30 minutes here, and but I'd love to have you back. This has been so awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on. I don't know if you ever have time to do to do something really drawn out. I don't know if you're set up for that, but if you are,
no, and anybody else, if you're hearing me and John talk and you're interested in that, say, hey, yes, please hit us at the Empowera email. That's the word Empower, and then the letter A at 1 at proton.me or beyond. We're all around, so that'd be cool to do. Actually, absolutely, even a live version too, and everybody else can be their own anonymous guests and whatnot. So, yeah, that'd be slick. I agree. Did you have an empowering? Oh, go ahead. Yeah. You there?
I'm here still.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, thanks for having me. I'd be happy to come back on. If you ever want to discuss, any specific text or specific bills, specific websites, specific people
Sure.
in these alternative medical realms, I'd be up for that as well.
Absolutely. Dig it. And then did you happen to have a quote to bring us back here? Yeah, or any other kind of empowering piece of advice or a quote, that just for anybody looking to go into the line of work where you're at or just in your overall general community.
Yeah, I would say a quote by an author I like. His name is Richard Bach. It's been reminded by this quote a lot recently. The more I want to get something done, the less I call it work. Meaning, if something is truly important to you and has value to you as a person, it takes on more than just the title of work. It becomes something else. So yeah, that would be. And then of course you've got Alan Watts, who says that the trick to work is to understand that it's play. I'll leave it at that.
To play. I dig it. Well, thank you once again, John, for coming on here and mentioning your overall experience with various areas throughout your life and your community and the things that you use to help yourself with your overall health and wellness, and for sharing that as well, and your shout out to your medical marijuana doctor. Thank you all, everybody. This has been episode 24. Thank you. Bye for now.